Good morning, and good morning. How you doing? How you doing? It's a Tuesday. It's the 11th of August. We're already on to another week that will soon be Hump Day tomorrow. So a lot's going on, just in terms of just news, and some things depressing, some things could make you a little happy, just knowing that life just continues and we have to, this is the only life we have. I talked about our one not long ago, and we need to look at what one is. And so today, the one is you. But we're not talking about one in particular, we're talking about what one knows. That is what's on the table today. That's our breakfast, our lunch, and our dinner, and maybe our nap time wake up too. Okay? It's just that's what we need to talk about, is what do you know? And not only what do you know, what do you do with what you know? Sometimes, good morning, Jones. Sometimes we have a tendency to make light of something which is heavy, and or we take things out of context, or we certainly know, as people, we observe obviously with our eyes, we listen with our ears, we we feel things with our hands, or we might feel it internally with our heart. But sometimes we get mixed up on the signals that we get, on what we may see, what we may hear, and therefore what we may know. And so the no sometimes becomes troublesome, because it really isn't what we know, it's what we do with what we know. Because sometimes, I think I talked about that the other day, talking about, the chatter, you know, just to be in the midst of just running away with information, with knowledge that should be reserved, or just should be terminated in terms of your discussion, you know. But sometimes we don't always do that. Sometimes we just want to be on the inside of Pollyanna's, circle, and tell all the story. I think there's a song in our church, I think I've heard a couple of times, called Run and Tell That. And sometimes we do. We can't wait to get information to run and tell it. We want to tell what we know. We want to be the town crier, as they say, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. So, which means hear ye, hear ye, hear ye in modern day. But basically it's saying the same thing. I'm going to stand up on this box and I'm going to tell you a few things. And sometimes we listen, and what we've heard should not be carried any further. And I'm quite sure some of you have seen those legends that come through, where they're really wrong. It's really information that it's a urban legend. It's not. There's no truth to it. And somebody, a friend of mine, a doctor, said, I think I got caught up early in the morning on one, and I sent it out again. And she wrote me and she said, excuse me, don't, take part in this. This isn't true. This isn't so and so and so. There's no way that Facebook can, limit whoever's become a part of your circle. They're not interested in that. And I said, yeah, I knew that, but I just was, I was just putting forth the effort. Good morning, Joy. How are you? I'm just putting forth the effort of just playing in the game. I understand it. I don't believe everything I see. I don't believe everything I hear. I don't believe everything that feels like it might be cashmere is cashmere. Okay, because I think life has gotten to the point where there's a lot of mimicking. People have learned how to make, a zirconia look like a diamond. They make, sweaters that look like they're real fur. There's just those kind of things out there for people to, what I call, get into. and people get into it. They really do. They enjoy thinking that they're able to afford the most expensive or be the most on the in crowd of knowing, having, and being a part of. And so sometimes you have to understand, what is your knowledge? What do you know? What do you do with what you know? And sometimes we don't do right with it. We just don't. So anyway, today I'm going to start with a poem. And this poem is by Steve Jobs. And it's his insight of working with a lot of people that pretty much tell you sometimes that you have to be careful as to what you know about them, and then more so what you might be saying about them. But anyway, it says, here's to my crazy ones. It says the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round page. It says the round page in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. You're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing that you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones that do. They're the ones who change the world. So sometimes, you can see somebody and think you know them, and then you use what you think you know about them, but yet and still, you feel that they're crazy. You feel that they're, a little weird. They dress a little funny. They're over the top. They're this and they're that. But what Steve said and what he found to be true before, he passed away, is that sometimes the people who may have the weirdest ideas and the most craziest things to do are the ones that actually change the world. They are the ones. So sometimes putting your mouth on somebody, as my pastor used to say, lying about stuff that really didn't happen, telling things what you see from your view to get more importance out of it than what it deserves, sometimes it goes awry. It goes awry. Because people just need to live their lives. They just need to live it any way they want. Anyway, today's word is know, K-N-O-W. And I know you know a lot of stuff. I know it. I believe that all of us know a lot of things. And so we need to be clear about what we know. But here, let me write this down. Good morning, Janice. Let me say this to you. Let me ask this question since Janice is just coming in. Are you stuck? Periodically, we are all going to be stuck. We're going to be stuck on so many things. People, relationships, jobs, decisions to move from one place to another, the house you're in, the car you drive, always a decision, always something to be concerned about. So this note talks about, it says know, K-N-O-W, is to be clear and certain. It's a perception as a fact or a truth, to be cognizant or aware of, as some should say a fact. It could be circumstance or occurrence that have information as a part or about something. It says to be aware is to know something, and it says through observation, through inquiry, or through information. And it says that sometimes we take observation and awareness and inquiry to the next level, and in the process we mess some things up for ourselves and others because we add things to it. And it says to know something is to realize something, be aware, have notice of, perceived, have seen, have sensed, have recognized, or have understood something. So this sometimes says that even though you may know something, does not mean that you should share it. Does not mean that you should make it your duty, your responsibility to be the one who takes it forward. Now, sometimes, yes, in the interest of danger, in the interest of somebody receiving something they didn't know, in the interest of, what I call good faith, good intention, absolutely, absolutely do share it. But sometimes we can do what I'm going to go to first, which talks about Kindle. We can add Kindles to stuff. Write down if you know what Kindle is, and I'm quite sure you do. But Kindle to me is interesting because all I could think of is like when we were living in New York and it would be real cold in the wintertime, we had these things called little Kindle rods, and we would set them on fire, and then we put it in the fireplace, and it would light the fireplace up. So I know what Kindle is, but Kindle says to build or to fuel something, to ignite it, to set it on fire, to light it up, to make it arouse, to make it angry, to inspire, to put a match to start, to spark, or to torch. And sometimes that's what we do when we know something. We take it upon ourselves to add some fire to something, add some kindle, some torching to make it blow up and make it bigger than what it is. Because sometimes if you let things go, it's much better off than if you were to really, really push it forward and make it where it's an unnecessary thing to do. But if you've seen somebody, if you've seen somebody kindle something, say so. Say so. Sometimes you might have to even tell the person that it's not necessary. I mean, I've done it. I've been in meetings where there was someone that was in the meeting that was placed in charge of a project, and the person that was placed in charge of the project was much younger than some of the other people that were in the meeting, but the task had been given to her, and she knew what she was doing. It's just that these other folks in the meeting didn't want her to say it. So when I had heard enough, I said, excuse me, okay? She gave you no provocation to say anything negative to her. If you don't want to stay for the meeting, you need to get up and go. But this is unnecessary. No reason to attack her personally if the call and the requirement was given to her to present and not you. And they said, oh, well, we didn't mean to do that. Sometimes we don't realize that our talk and what we know really exposes people, but it's also hurtful for others. It may be hurtful. People may find themselves doubting who they are just by what you said, or trying to defend who they are by what you may know and what you told on what you know. Sometimes it's just best to just leave it alone. The next thing about no is that you could have what I call a naivete to it. Naive. You just don't know what you know and what you should do with what you know. Okay? You may say something and don't know how volatile it may be, or how supportive it is, because this isn't just a negative thing. To know something could be negative or positive, And so it says to be naive about something is to have a lack of experience or wisdom or judgment, because sometimes we're just off track in what we do. It says unaffectedly, or sometimes, we might be foolish as to what we say. We may make it too simple. We may make it childlike. We may make it, credulous. We've just decided that we were going to say something that we didn't realize how hurtful it is, or we didn't realize what the damage could be done. But it is. And it says sometimes to be naive just makes us ignorant, makes us innocent too, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know. I remember when I was a little girl in New York, and, I would periodically just tell my mom what I would see. And my mother said, oh, you get back in the house. And you're not supposed to be seeing that. Well, it wasn't that she was mad at me because I saw it. She went after the people who were doing it in that instance, because she said, you shouldn't be displaying this to our kids. And they were making out, they were doing something. But anyway, my mother thought that it was poor taste. So I told my mother I knew, she didn't want us to know. And sometimes that's what happens. If you say something that that shouldn't be known, you may not realize the impact of it. But the person that it's involved or it affects, either it's by a relative, and now I've gotten to the point where you can't say much about too many people because everybody's cousins. They've done the history, they've done the lineage, and they find out that they're related. So I find it unnecessary to do too much of that gossip thing. In fact, I'm not a big phone person unless it's something I need to know. There's something important that I just have to know, but it's usually related to something that I'm working on. The next thing in terms of know is the O of know is for observant. And it says it's quick to notice things, to be alert, to be sharpened, to be sharp-eyed, to be eagle-eyed, to be keen and keen-eyed, to be watchful, attentive, awake, heedful, mindful, focused, aware, and, it says beady-eyed, meaning you saw something and your eyes may be really big about it. So to be observant is certainly important before you would say anything that you've seen, and certainly tell anything that you've known from what you witnessed. And so sometimes you just have to take that to the side and just say, you know what, sometimes what I see is not all to the story. Because you may just be seeing the end of it. You may not be seeing, good morning, T. You may not be seeing all of what might be a part of this thing called observant, to be observant. But to know what you're saying should be important. In fact, more important than what you saw, what you watched, what you witnessed. And sometimes we take what we see in that little bit of, what I call focused vision, to the level of, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And sometimes we add things to it, It's not always intentional. We're imagining that other things were going on, and it really wasn't, But if we don't know, if we're not more, what I say, if we don't challenge ourselves to be quiet more, and it's okay to observe, but it's not okay for us to observe and discuss, or to observe and run and tell it, because sometimes people get hurt by the telling. Good morning, Adelia. So it's not always that easy that we could do something that may end up being hurtful to others. So we need to know what we know, and that's fine. But we would need to know what we see. We may take some of what we see, but not all of it, because sometimes we don't have the whole picture. All we see is what's happening right now. We don't know what happened before. Oh, Jones says gossip often leads to distorted facts. That's right, because it does. Let me see if I can pull that back down. Good morning, Sandra. Because of the many channels it goes through. That's right. I always used to have this. I remember this thing we used to play when we were little called telephone. And we'd start the story on one end, and we send that story all the way through the room. And it'd come back, and it was never like it started. Never. And sometimes we would even do a visual view of telephone. Instead of it being what we heard, it would be what we see. And we would put something out there, and then we'd put all these things out there, and then we'd cover them up. And we'd ask them, so what did you see? And people would not see all the things. Sometimes some people did, some people didn't. Some people didn't. And that's how we are. We may focus in on what we see him say and not what you saw her say, or what we saw what we heard portions of the group. But collectively, if everybody's talking, you may have only gotten a glimpse of a little piece of certain information. So sometimes we have to be really observant and pay attention to what we see as being knowledge or some aspects of knowledge. And we don't always do that. We sometimes just want to make it where we saw it all. We saw the accident. And I think I was talking to somebody recently, and they were talking about, an accident they had. And in fact, I can even give my own accident. 4 years ago, I had an accident. Well, 5 years ago, I had an accident. And the woman had to be texting. coming off of the interstate because the back of my car, the trunk, she hit me so hard that the trunk went into the back seat, and my back seat came into my back and pushed me into my steering wheel. And I went to the hospital in an ambulance, had a big contusion on my head, and just a mess. Black eyes, the whole bit. Guess who got the ticket? We got the ticket. Now, some things were operating there. I'm going to tell you what happened is that because I went to the hospital, they didn't ask me any questions. So they asked people they asked her. She said, "Oh, she slowed down." That was not true. I was going slow. She was going fast. She hit me. And we got the ticket, had to go to court because I said I'm going to contest it. And I probably should have sued her because I found out that she received money from my insurance. I didn't sue her. She sued me. So see, sometimes what you see now, the officer didn't come and ask me anything. He came and brought me a ticket. He said, and put it on the side because the doctors were just in my room talking to me in the ER. He said, "I'm sorry, but this is what other people said." This is what other people said. He never talked to us. And since when being hit from the back, would it not be the person in the back who didn't control their car? They put it in. Me, I'm in the middle, so there's a car in front of me and a car in back of me. She hits my car and my car hits the car in front. I'm charged. So sometimes being observant still isn't enough because you may have 3 or 4 different angles that people saw it at, and they came up and they may say something that wasn't true. They lied on us, they lied on us. We certainly got out of paying any tickets. However, the insurance company let us go because they had to pay for my car and they had to pay for her car. Who knew? Who knew that lie would become something bigger? So the last letter in no is wisdom. And my wisdom now says I would charge somebody. I would file against them and not let them file against me. But once again, I had some naivete going on there. I wasn't observant because I couldn't see. I'm going to the hospital, so I didn't know. But I didn't know that people would make up stuff on me, but they did. And it was believed. And then the officer never showed up. So when we talk about wisdom, which is the W of no, it says the quality of having, a way of knowing knowledge and understanding knowledge and making good, sound judgment that is quality. That's the quality of being wise. So you're not making up anything. It is what it is. You saw it. It is what it is. But there's always opinions, once again. So who else saw it? So we really talk about, when you're talking about wisdom, you're talking about somebody's intellect. You're talking about somebody's understanding, someone's insight. Now, if they don't ever ask you for your insight and you're a part of what you see, then you're going to have to speak on what it is happened versus what somebody else claims occurred. Then they talk about perception, and they talk about, understanding that there's circumstances surrounding, the issue, which may make it circumspective. There's some more questions that needs to be asked. And it also talks about the shrewdness of it. Like when you have wisdom, you can be shrewd with it. You can be shrewd enough to say, this is what happened. This is how it occurred. And it says, then there's also acuteness. And sometimes you don't even realize how acute the information is that you're either giving or you're receiving. So to know something, you need to be able to stand on it. That's the dog making noise in whatever he's doing over there. But anyway, I apologize. I hear him. That's an observation. But anyway, to know something is good. How you use it can be good. It can be bad. You know, it can be good or it can be bad. So sometimes you have to bridle your tongue. You have to hold back from what you know and not really give it out to people who, or on situations that you don't know all the things that have really occurred. Because something may have happened before you got there and watched something. Or you may have only heard a portion of the conversation because the original conversation or the conversation originated, in the car, at their house, someplace, but you just showed up and heard some of it. So there we are for the know, to know something. So here's some questions for today. Hope you have a pen and paper. And these questions really talk about just know, to know something. So question number 1 is, what do you know? Truly, what do you know? Sometimes I say I don't know anything unless I've, been able to read it, been able to document it, cite it. Like yesterday I gave you statistics. They weren't my statistics. They were statistics from some studies that had been done to talk about certain things. So sometimes that's what you have to do. You have to really go deep and get some what I call some backup behind you, and not just say things because you think that that's the way it should go or somebody else said it. Question number 2, how do you utilize what you know? Do you apply, kindle, or fuel? And be honest, because sometimes we've all probably been, in a point where we may want to gossip, or we have. And that would be the kindle and the fuel. That would be it. Good morning, Al. And so when we have an issue that really bothers us, and we've tied into it, and we've made it more than what it is. We've added some fire to it, and people take it forward, and next thing you know, you hear it again. It doesn't sound like anything what you said, but you're a part of the chain now. You're part of the chain, And so I say sometimes we just need to not be a part of that conversation. Just leave it out. Question number 3, are you naive about your knowledge on things you should know? And sometimes, let's face it, we do not know all the things or all the information about the things we should know. We may know some of it. That's like going to sit for a test and you only know 3 of the answers and there's 100 questions. I'm just saying. It happens. It happens. I remember sitting at a test in undergraduate school, and I got to be honest, I didn't study. I'd been up all night doing something, but I hadn't studied, and I couldn't imagine. And I remember reading stuff, but I couldn't imagine where the professor got this information from. I said, that didn't say that, meaning I had read it, but I didn't study it, like I should have. And sometimes what the professors do is that they get things that are so close, almost homogeneous, that one word changes the whole thing. And so if you don't really know it, you don't know it. You don't know it. And so would you say factual research helps? That's right. I agree. I agree. Sometimes we just have to be on top of stuff. I remember one of my professors always asking me, what my opinion was and where did I get my information. And so I said, well, I have an opinion of one, but I cannot speak for all. And he was always ask me, because I went to a predominantly white undergraduate school, and he just always thought that, he's the one, I think I've told you if you've been with me before, he lays on the desk. So when you come in, he's not sitting behind his desk or standing up at the board or in front of the desk. He's lying down on the desk with his hand like this. And he would always say, so Sandy, what do you think about the black race regarding... Okay, my eyebrow already went up. And he loved it because he knew that I was going to be just as edgy as he was. And I said, I cannot speak. Can't speak for the whole race. I can only speak for me, as they say, my mother raised us in our house. I don't know how other people were raised. I don't know what else is going on. And I said, and I'm new to college, so I barely know what to say to you, but I know that I'm going to say I don't know that. He would say, you get an A from me. He would give me an A, and he gave me A. Everybody took his class because they gave me A. They knew they were going to go in there and he was going to act a fool. He was tenured. He could care less, and he was like a hippie, throwback hippie. He had a lot of hair, and he most of the time he came in and his shirts were unbuttoned all the way down, and he'd be laying up on the desk with jeans on. So that was my exposure to understanding that if there's something I don't know, I'm not going to speak on it. And I know I've spoken on stuff that I thought I knew later on in life, but it wrangled back around and hit me, but I don't do it often. I'm not a person who tries to be in a position to misspeak often. I try to know what I'm talking about because I think that makes it a good thing to do. It says, how observant are you in holding or folding the information you know? Holding or folding. Holding on to, folding it. That means, to me, folding in this instance means, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to stay with what I got, but I'm not going to go on any further. I'm not going to discuss this any further. I'm not a part of that. I don't want to be a part of that. And sometimes it's hard for us to have, friendships, family ships, and something's going on and we don't want to chime in. We want to. We want to, we want to help the person we're trying to support, And it doesn't always work because it ends up, that those people, those 2, those 3, those 5 may make up and you still on the outside. So I say, don't even put your hat in the ring. Don't even go for it. Act like you don't have nothing to do with it, And a lot of times they would always ask, well, what you think, Sandy? Nothing. Nothing. Whatever you think. Whatever you think. And the last question is, do you use your wisdom before using your knowledge? Do you use your wisdom before you use your knowledge? And sometimes those two get mixed up. And the cart goes behind the horse only for a second. And that's to speak. And then all of a sudden it gets mixed up. And the cart's in front of the horse. Unnecessary. So sometimes we need to know if the information we have is information we should share, information we should give away. Don't know. But what I do know is that I try to stay away from it. I try to stay away from those situations where I'm giving information that may be false, may be, hurtful, maybe misleading. Because, every once in a while somebody will send me a coupon. And they said, hey, look, you can go over here and this happened. You go over there and they said, oh, yeah, these are going around. This isn't true. So sometimes we don't even know that we've been fooled. But we have. We've been fooled by people, or we've just misstepped. We've misspoken. We have misspoken. So anyway, that's the session for today on Know. What do you know? And know people for only what you see, and not even that take a pride in and not saying you know everything. You don't know everything about even when you see them. You don't know everything about them even when you've spoken with them. You know some things. You don't know everything. None of us do. There's no way for us to know, the complications of what comes with a person. We come complicated. We come with issues. We come with happy, sad, frustrated, mad. We come with some of everything. We do. And so therefore we don't need to be determined. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. Hey, listen, tomorrow I will come back with another session, and then they're going to do a soft book signing, for Mr. Al's book, Al's 10 Fingers. he used them to play music down at the Gordon Community Center on De Villers. I think it's 306 De Villers. And, it's limited access, of course, but, if you're not doing anything and you can get down there, that would be wonderful. It's going to be 1:30 p.m. and it should be good. Hopefully, it will be fun for us. And of course, we would have done it so much differently had it been not a time of pandemic. But because we have pandemic, we will not be trying to get to Barnes and Nobles and Books a Million and all these other locations, or personal smaller bookstores I know of which are down on the blocks. But we're gonna do what we can. Listen, you have a wonderful day. Love you very much. Appreciate you. Hope to see you tomorrow. And we'll start on time because tomorrow's going to be a busy day, but we will start on time. And have a good evening. Be productive and use your no wisely. Okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.